Hello, everybody. Mike from Southern California again. It's Thursday, March 26, 2020, and you're on the mic. So, I've got a question for you all. How do you want to survive? Now, there's a reason why I asked the question. It's kind of what I'm going to talk about on today's episode because I was thinking about something this morning. You know, as we've been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, however you want to call it. You know, we talked partly about how people themselves, will still want to make the choice to whether or not they want to take those risks for themselves. And then there's been another angle where people talk about, well, you should still stay home for those who are more at high risk, so you don't spread to those who are at high risk, like those in your family who might be like over the age of 65 or who have pre-existing medical conditions that may make them more vulnerable to contracting the COVID-19. Those who may have immune system issues, have some form of autoimmune disorder, or those whose immune systems are otherwise compromised. So we've been, that's been brought up. Well, even if you don't, even if you want to take the risk on whether or not you catch it and face the consequences, if you should think about those who are more vulnerable, particularly the elderly. And that's one of the angles I want to talk about here. Because a lot of time, they say, well, you should stay home anyways to protect the elderly or protect those who are more, their immune systems are more compromised, those who are higher risk for contracting the disease, the virus. But granted, in recent days, we've at least heard of two people who are fairly young who have caught it and passed on. They were even trying to link the death of a 17-year-old in Lancaster to the virus, but from what some of the more recent reports are saying, it may not have been the virus at all that killed the 17-year-old. But one of the points I was thinking about this morning is, well, why are people over 65 and those with those whose immune systems are compromised, why are they more susceptible to catching COVID-19? Well, obviously, one of the obvious reason, particularly with the older people, they're older. Their body, as they get older, their body begins to shut down. Ultimately, we all have to remember that we're all gonna die someday. There's no escaping that. There's no escaping the fact that one day our life is going to come to an end. Whether that's today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, we're gonna die. It's not a pleasant thing to think about, but we are going to die. You know. Um, so okay. So, anyways, as I said, though, ultimately we're all gonna die someday. Okay. Now, obviously, when you get older, of course, your body begins to break down. It's a natural part of the life cycle. You know, people develop a lot of diseases that people develop as they get older include osteoporosis, the weakening of the bones, um, Parkinson's disease, which is a neuromuscular disorder, um, Alzheimer's, dementia, forms of, mental breakdown due to age, you know, um, people are more likely to get cancer. Now, cancer, you can get cancer at any age. Don't get me wrong, but you're more susceptible to it, obviously, as you get older. You know, um, So, you know, so as I was saying though, you have a lot of older people who are already in many ways compromised. Their immune systems are compromised. They're more likely to get, they're more susceptible to the coronavirus. Okay, so when you're arguing the point, well, you should still stay at home so you don't pass it on to the elderly. So then here's what I would want to ask people to think about. What, how do you think they'd want to survive? Because many elderly people who are suffering from medical issues, we have, nursing homes filled with them, you know, from the diseases they already have, they're just withering away, you know, in the twilight times of their year. Now there are a lot of, elderly people who are still living active lives, and I give them praise for that. And I think, for them that's a good thing. But there are even more who are medically, they're not really they really don't have a high quality of life. Many of them are in nursing homes or in situations where they're not really, they're just simply existing. They're not really living, you know. And yes, it's sad when you have to tell your kids that grandma or grandpa is going to die soon. And we know for a lot of these people, getting coronavirus is an instant death sentence. Once they get it, they're usually gone within a matter of days, maybe a week at the most. We know that when they get it, it's a death sentence. You know, how would anybody want to survive in that situation? Because your two options are, you can go even if they don't get corona. Okay, as we said, coronavirus is a death sentence. It's like that. Matter of days, maybe a week at the most. Once they get it, they're gone. You know, and even though in that time frame the suffering may be greater than if you know if they'd go for a longer time, you'd really want to ask yourself, well, for them, what would be better for them? Would it be better maybe to just let if they get the disease, let it run its course? At least then, you know, their time's a lot more finite, and they don't have to suffer as long. Or would you rather spare them the pain and suffering of the coronavirus only to have them linger on with whatever illness or disease they have that put them in that position in the first place, whether that be cancer or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or osteoporosis or whatever medical issue they have at that point. You'd rather let it linger on for, you know 2 to 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Let them just linger, 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 being being both an emotional and financial strain on not just their families, but on society as a whole. Some people may find what I'm saying here a little bit cold, but that is something to think about. There are some families that can't afford to keep their, you know, their elderly loved ones in a hospice or in a nursing home till they die, till they just slowly but surely wither away. And they probably can't spend the time with their grandkids like maybe healthy elderly people can, because you know because they're in bed all the time. They're just so sick they can't do anything. They have to be fed. They have to be somebody has to help them with what many of us take for granted: eating, taking, bathing ourselves, using the toilet. You know, so would you would you save them? Do you seek to save them from the pain and suffering of the coronavirus, only to have them linger and suffer through whatever medical issue may have put them in that position in the first place? I think that is something to really think about. You know, neither choice. Which is the better of two evils? There, it's kind of like, you know, do you save them from one disease so they can just, linger on and die a much slower, painful, ultimately painful death, or do you just, let the disease run its course? They get it, and at least their suffering won't last for too long. It may be more intense in the short term, but ultimately, at least if they die, they're no longer suffering. So yeah, so that's pretty much something to think about. This is something I thought I put out there. Kind of crossed my mind this morning. When I woke up. You know, because people keep saying that, oh, we got to protect the elderly. We got to, got to protect those whose immune systems are compromised due to other conditions. But again, it's kind of like, well, how do you really want to suffer? Do you want to suffer longer when your quality of life is not going to improve? Or do you just want to just let the disease run its course, and just, if you get it, and whether you recover from it or whether you die from it, doesn't matter. At least, you know at least, because again, ultimately, we're all going to die someday. So, um, it's just something to think about. Anyways, on to some happier stuff. you know, um, with all this coronavirus stuff going around, of course, it's all dark and gloomy. Everybody's trying to, you know, there are a few people like President Trump who are trying to put a positive, trying to get people back to just normalize as soon as possible, because there are a lot of Americans out there who that's what they want. But I'm not going to go too deep into that aspect of it. The main point was to just ask you, how would you want to suffer in that situation, how you think they'd want to suffer in that situation. Something to think about. So with that being said, let's move on to something a bit happier here. This day in niche history. So today is Thursday, March 26th. So what happened on this day in niche history, um, this March 26th? Okay. So 70 years ago today, March 26, 1950, um, Marvel Comics, under the name Leading Comic Corporation, released on the newsstands Kid Colt Outlaw number 10. Kid Colt Outlaw, I guess, was a Wild West type hero, Wild Western stories. The 10th issue of Kid Colt Outlaw went on sale on this date in 1950 from Leading Comic Corporation, which would eventually become Marvel. The editor, of course, on this comic was, the late Stan Lee. So, he was the editor on this comic. So, that happened on this date in 1950, 70 years ago. Now, as you move ahead in time, on this date 15 years ago, in 2005, um, Teddy Hart and Jack Evans, a couple of Canadian wrestlers. I believe Teddy Hart was, of course, trained in the Hart Dungeon. They would defeat Homicide and B-Boy for the Japan All Pro Wrestling Tag Team Championship. On this date in 2005, Teddy Hart and Jack Evans would beat B-Boy and Homicide for the Japan All Pro Wrestling Tag Team Championships, also known as the JAPW Tag Team Championships. Happened on this date in 2005. Then on this date in 2016, the initial run of the fairy tale anime came to an end on this date in 2000 2016. On this date 2016, which was about 4 years ago, the initial Japanese run of the anime Fairy Tail would come to an end on this date in 2016. So, with that all being said, if you want to check the links below, wanted to contact me directly, you can DM me through my Discord. If you'd like to check out the Discord and join, you're more than welcome to. I'm still promoting a bunch of different dub companies. I'm still promoting the GoFundMe's. As always, guys, never feel like you have to donate. If you have the means to and it's on your heart to do so, please consider donating. If you have already if you've already donated, please consider donating again. And if you cannot donate, you can still help out the cause by sharing the links, because sharing is caring, and sharing is caring, and you never know. Maybe somebody in your circle of friends might want to help out as well. And if you like this content, please consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. I always look forward to the conversations with you guys, as long as they're civil and respectful. We can always agree to disagree on things, okay, and communicate that civilly. And with that, I will see you guys tomorrow. And don't forget, tomorrow, aside from the normal on the mic video, I'll also be having the premiere of the VA, Voices Big and Small tomorrow. I believe I'm doing Carol Jacobinis out of New York. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.